Hello, hello.
Hey.
Hey.
I'm getting multiple echoes, and I have no idea where they're coming from. It's me,
Yeah.
and I need to find where it is.
You must have us open in a browser somewhere. That's got to be it. I noticed. I'll take over for now,
Thank
Adam. I noticed Edge Geek is here. That's awesome. Hey, Eric, how's it going? Glad to have you in the audience, and feel free to jump in if you have any awesome things to offer. He says, I'm always here.
A little scary, but it's true.
That's awesome. But today we have Eric with us, Eric Smalling. So Eric is from Snyk. Why don't you take it away? Introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, my name's Eric Smalling. I am a senior developer advocate at Snyk. I've been there for, 5 months, I guess, give or take. Prior to that, my background is software development. So I've done Java, C++, kind of probably 25 years. God, I'm old. All that good stuff for over the years. And the last decade or so has been mostly in the DevOps or DevSecOps now space, doing a lot of CI/CD, automated tests, and then into Docker and containers. I was a solution architect at Docker, as well as something similar at VMware on the Tanzu team for a while. So I've been around the block a few times, done a few things here. And today we're going to talk how Snyk's tools can be used in your developer workflow. Anything else you need to know from me before we get going?
I mean, need to know. No, everything's good. Yeah, that sounds like an awesome background.
Cool.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into it. And so we're going to do some demos today. And the one thing that you mentioned that I'm really excited to see is we're going to talk about the developer workflow, right? So, you know, I'm a developer. I work in an IDE. We're going to see how I can be conscious of security while I'm developing, writing my code all the way from end to end. Yep. And I know we're gonna do a 2-part series, by the way. So today we're talking about this kind of, as you said, I'm taking your words, Eric, but kind of the left side of, you know, developer all the way up to getting your image into a repository. And then tomorrow we're going to look at the orchestrator level. Now you have your containers running. How do we monitor and check all that? So stay tuned.
And you know, one of the things that I love about this is I can remember starting, you know, conversations years ago, and the process, you know, was basically developers would write all their code, and you know, we would do all the stuff that has to be done, and then it would eventually reach a security team, and the security team would review it, and then, you know, like, back to the drawing board if there was ever a problem. And so we had these conversations, and we talked about, you know, like, push this left. And this is something that we've done for you know, builds, and for just shorten that feedback loop was the goal. And so I love that Snyk comes along and, like, yeah, let's put it in the IDE, you know, like, let's give you feedback, you know, basically as you're typing it. That's so cool. So I'm excited to see that part.
Yeah. If you want to go ahead and show my screen, whichever of you has the control for that. You're not going to see slides from me. I'm a demo kind of person. The closest thing you're going to get from me from a slide is this and some links at the end. This is our homepage, and I just bring it up to kind of set the stage for what we're going to talk about. And like Brett was just saying, you've got your classic SDLC, you know, CD pipeline. And we're going to be talking left today. So developer workstation level stuff, CI tool things, all the way up to where you've built a container image and put it into ECR. Snyk has, you know, a plethora of products here. Everything I'm talking about today is free. We have a free version of everything we're going to do today. Our history really starts, and I just pulled up the list here so we can kind of get a pinpoint of what you're going to see today. The cloud native application security platform, that's kind of our bread and butter. What we've been doing forever is that if you're a Node.js or a Java or Go programmer or Python, probably other languages I'm not even remembering right now, this is where we come in and we scan the parts of your code that are going to get deployed that you didn't write. All of those libraries, all of their transitive dependencies, looking for vulnerabilities, and we have a whole department that curates, finds vulnerabilities, helps find remediation advice for them. And I'll show that quickly because we're going to concentrate on containers here, but that's where we're going to start. That is that's the open source slide. We're going to get into the container. We're going to talk about, as developers, we operating system vulnerabilities, things, something's wrong in curl. It's not something we've historically had to think about a lot. And now that we're building images, we do need to think about that, because the Docker file I build today we need to care about what's in there and how could somebody attack it, right? We want to make good images that are small and have as few vulnerabilities, obviously, as possible. And we're going to talk a bit about, I skipped over it, or I started accidentally with it, the cloud native aspect of it. We're going to talk a little bit about Kubernetes and what we can scan ahead of time before you even get to a deployment state. We have static analysis for your Kubernetes YAML, as well as other infrastructure as code type YAML. And we'll touch on a little bit of that. The rest of the stuff I'm not even going to get into right now. Let's jump over to my terminal. So what we're looking at now is a purposefully vulnerable app we call Goof at Snyk that we use to demonstrate, how the tool works. I've already built it, so I'm going to go ahead and just kick off our tool right away. Now, I previously have installed Snyk, and I didn't figure you guys wanted to see that. All it is npm install -g something Snyk, and that will pull down everything you need. And if there's any updates, it'll let you know to run an update and pull down. But I'm going to kick it off. It automatically will analyze this folder and determine, oh, this is a Node.js app. And I like this one because I'm not a JavaScript programmer, really. And so I can't lie to you and say, oh, it's going to do things, because I just give you what's here. And anyway, what is put out is a report. I'm scrolling back to the top of it, color-coded by severity, of the open source library vulnerabilities. And it's grouped them, interestingly, into, here's a bunch that we could fix by simply upgrading the library or the parent library that brought it in. For instance, this ADM zip 047 has a directory traversal. That's actually new since the last time I did this demo, and an arbitrary file write vulnerability. If we were to upgrade to 5.2, it would fix this error. And you can see there's a ton of these, and the yellow ones are medium severity and blue is low. The next group would be, hey, we don't have upgrades that'll fix these, but we actually have patches you could apply to your code that would mitigate the problem. And then finally, there's ones that there's no fix for these. The open source community has not come up with a fix. We can't patch it for you, just so you're aware that they're there. Now, this is interesting and nice to have. And again, I'm right on my desktop, ran the tool, works right there. I don't have to wait for some CI tool to run or some security analyst to come in and say, hey, we found these things, a week after you committed your code. This is before I've even created my pull request. I know that this is here. I'm going to jump over to my IDE, which today is Visual Code. And we have another plugin for code that gives me that kind of information right in line. So I'm in the JSON.
That's really cool.
And yeah, it's saying, hey, you got two vulnerabilities in that. There's the one we were just looking at, right? One vulnerability, one, all of that. And if we jump back to the test, you can see it's the same info. So it's using the same tooling on the back end, calling out to our free service to give you that kind of stuff. Now, as a developer, I'm going to look at this. I'm like, I don't know what an arbitrary file write archive extraction is. There's a link that if you wanted to, you could just go and open that and go right into the full-on details. This was found by the Snyk security research team. There's a CVE that was opened for it, and all sorts of information. So if you're unclear, like, should we fix this in this release or not? How important is this? If it's a high severity, you probably should, especially if there's a fix for it. You might as well. You can come in here and sit down with your architect or your security lead and kind of weight the severity. How does it impact your team? But you know what? I'm going to say that we should fix this. So I'm going to upgrade us to 5.2.
I just want to point out the fact that you actually, the Snyk tool is giving me direct guidance as to how I can fix this problem. One of my biggest issues with security tools is when you give me all these vulnerabilities, but you don't tell me how I can fix it.
Right.
So the fact that this takes a step and says, this one you can just update, this one you need to patch, here's how, that's really cool. And a lot of viewers of this show, as we talk about security tools in the past and as we've talked through them, it's every time, hands down, someone will ask, but what about the packages? Not just, or I'm sorry, the modules that I use in my code. Are you scanning those? And I feel like there's a lot of gaps there. So the fact that you're addressing those gaps and that you're being very explicit with how to fix those gaps is really awesome.
That is true. You know, a lot of time you'll get a lot of scanning tools, and I'm not going to bash any other scanning tools there. It's great you're using them if you're using them, please. But a lot of them will give you the spreadsheet, right? You'll say, oh, here's all the things you got wrong. Maybe they'll say, you know, here's the CVE for it, or usually they'll show you at least that. And maybe that CVE will guide you to the answer. But like I said, we're dev first. We want to push that at you. Say, hey, if you do this, it will fix that. You can see in my IDE, it's by doing an npm install on my command line, which pulls down the new version of the library, it rescanned it and it's like, oh yeah, that vulnerability is gone. And this, like I said, this exists. This is a node specific plugin. It's called what's the name of the plugin? It's Vuln Cost. We're working on having more IDEs to have this exact plugin and for other languages. But right now, if you're a Node programmer, you should have this plugin. It's wonderful. It's I think it's based on another one that checks the size of JavaScript libraries that you pull down. It would actually feed next to this crap, that's going to pull down 3 megabytes of JavaScript if you use that. So also another good one to have. Anyway, so let's get, this is code. This is nice and interesting, but let's talk. Let me reset things back here so that I know where I am. Let's talk containers. So,
okay.
Because that's what we're here to talk. We're containers on the couch, not Node.js on the couch. So we added, it's been over a year now ago, they added to the tool the ability to scan containers. Now, let me jump back over here to show it to you. I have a very bad Docker file in here that is on hella old version of Node. I believe the current long-term stable for Node is 14, and 15 is available, but that's like a bleeding edge or something. And that's probably old news too. It's probably 15, 16 now. But as you can see, this is based on Node 6 and Stretch. If you're not familiar, that's a version of Debian or distribution, I should say. And then just a bunch of commands. So I'm guessing most people on this show know what a Docker file is. I'm not going to go too into this, but effectively, if it's new to you, this is just the things that make up the image that you're going to run a container off of. So start from Stretch, do these things to it, and there'll be layers and all sorts of stuff that created, and then run npm start by default when somebody runs the container based on this image, right? So let's build this. So we're going to do a Docker build. We'll call this Eric goof just to be not good. Not good. Not good at all. We'll say from this context. Now, those of you who know Docker files and know anything about security around them know that, oh crap, you're going to be shipping more than you need to in this image, and we're not going to get. This is not going to be a full-on how to make the best Docker file kind of a talk. I'd be happy to do that again on another sit down with this. But I just want to show you what the Snyk tools can help you do, kind of give you a taste of it. So here we're just building the image. This shouldn't take too long because I thought I had cached this, but I probably cleared it because I'm anal about that. While we wait, so you're not having to stare at a terminal.
It's real world.
I'm going to jump back into my browser and we'll close this. So Snyk has a web UI to it that can be used in various ways. And one of the things you can do, so everything I'm doing is out of GitHub right now. And we have some integrations with GitHub that are kind of cool where I can go in here. I've, previous to this call, said, hey, watch this repository. This is the one we're dealing with right now. And it goes out and daily looks at my repository, regardless of if changes have come in, and says, oh, I see that you have a Docker file in there. You also have some Terraform in there, some Kubernetes YAML, and a Node.js app. So since we just looked at the Node.js piece, let's open this up. the web interface, there's more than one way to get into the web interface. This is just kind of the cleanest way to show you right now. We're going to see the same kind of problems we saw on the command line and in my IDE. The cool thing about the web interface is it prioritizes them by a score. We'll see this for the Docker container as well. But we see this got a score of 899. I think it's out of 1,000. And this one was 756 and so forth. And the score is made up of a few things. One of them is the CVSS score, which is applied to the CVE based on its severity and what, how bad it could be. But also we weigh in, is it mature, which means there's an exploit published for this. So some script kiddie can go find something to actually attack you on this. And then finally, and there's a fix available. So you have no excuse. You should be fixing this, right? Now what's extra cool is you can sit, let's say that you're sitting here and it's like, oh, geez, we've got 66 issues. That's way too much to tackle. I don't want to boil the ocean here. You can sit down and say, you know what? We're not going to worry about anything that doesn't have a known exploit yet. And that will whittle it down. Now we're looking at 41 less and so forth. You can bring those down. You could also say, you know what? We're only going to look at highs. So 34 are going to be there. But from that, I can then say, you know what? Go ahead and open a fixed PR. And we may not wait for this because this will take a minute. But this is going to generate a pull request to fix everything that you just saw. There it is, right there. So it's going to go through prioritizing the highs to the top. Since I didn't refresh the page, it pulled the lows into. But I could go to the bottom of this. Honestly, I could just click this. It's going to go into GitHub and create this, a very nice documented pull request with everything that's going to get changed. And your security team can look at that and say, wow, you've handled everything we could have thought of and more. Hero. Now, it is automation, and we're not going to push it automatically for you because we don't trust the robots that much. But having this available right at the front of your pipeline, without you having to go manually change every single one of these, especially on a new project that you're just pulling in to Snyk and not having been iteratively looking at this before. Oh no.
Yeah.
Demos, no.
Wait a minute. That means I have to bring out the Doing It Live banner.
There you go.
You've earned the Doing It Live banner.
It's all good.
Imagine that didn't happen.
It was a big PR. Going I don't know if that's
it was. It could have just timed out. I don't know. But that actually gives me the chance. I'm just gonna go take a look at it. If we're gonna YOLO here, let's take a look at what did it create one? No. But you know what? I've done this demo before. Here's one from a prior run through this demo that I just closed out to hide it.
And can you blow up your font a few?
There you go.
There you go. Cool.
Here's the kind of thing you would see. So it's got a nice table listing all the things that are getting fixed in this PR. And if I went to the files changed, it's got this is a .snyk file. That's something our tool uses to keep track of patches applied and whatnot. But you can come in and see, here's all the changes to the package, JSON, all those version changes that went in, and so forth.
That's slick.
I really like this. And I get some of this through GitHub. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that, their robots will automatically open a PR for me. But I feel like this one has a lot more behind it. And it gives me information that allows me to sort of evaluate on my own instead of just incrementing a version number without any info to back it.
Yeah.
Bingo. Context is so important. Could you imagine stopping a build and a deployment on a vulnerability that, it's a vulnerability, but it doesn't affect anything. And I'm okay technically running with it, but I don't have context. So security people can sometimes freak out, but having that context really puts it into perspective. So I very nice, very clean.
So my build had finished while I talked all about that stuff. I'm going to run the container test. And this is the same tool, Snyk, just with container as the main command and test as the sub command. I'm feeding it the image I just built. And I'm adding a little extra here to say, hey, by the way, I have the Docker file that built this thing, and here it is. That gives it a little more information about what each layer is made out of, so that if it sees things, it can correlate them better, and it knows exactly what base image you used and whatnot. So we'll run that. And what it's going to do here, kind of on the back end, as far as I understand it, is it's running through all of the layers, looking at all the different, in this case, it would be apt packages, all the different things you've done in the run lines, and putting that together into kind of I don't want to call it a bill of materials because I don't know if that's technically what it is, but a graph of everything.
Mhm.
And then it ships it to our tools and our service. And our service then goes against the same database that the application vulnerabilities are in. Same team works on that. And it's going to go find if there's any vulnerabilities in the image. And the difference between this and most container scanning tools is, come on, trying to delay long enough for it to come up.
For it.
Well,
Okay, I've done this demo a few times. We're gonna look
I
back
feel like I know where you might be going, and it was actually a question I was going to ask you. When I've used container scanning tools, they scan packages, apt packages, or RPM, like RPMs in the RPM database, but they don't go any deeper than that. And they don't scan if I npm install something or, anything like that. This does, right?
So yes, with an asterisk on it. It will. We do have a what we call app vulns feature that's kind of hidden right now. It's not publicly. It's beta basically. That will go in and look at your actually the similar vulnerabilities that we looked at from the npm point of view, but it's not baked. It's not default, as I'll say at the moment. What it is doing though is it's going in, it's looking at all the different run lines you've done, and it understands that here's where you added curl that has horrible vulnerability. Here's the line to go at. Mine doesn't have this demo doesn't have anything really in the run lines that add anything. What I was going to get at was the output from this. Let's look at the bottom. We could go up and we could look at all these vulnerabilities. This is very similar to what you see in most of the tools out there. They'll give you a list. They'll show you what's vulnerable.
And Eric, sorry to interrupt really quick. Can I output like all these commands? Can I output to JSON so I can programmatically make decisions?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we can output to JSON. We can output to Serif, which I'm not a huge expert on, but that's the tab, the format that, say, like in GitHub, the security tab, you can feed it right into that and it'll show up in those lists. What I was going to show though is at the bottom here, we're saying, you know what, your base image has 867 vulnerabilities. We found 867 in your image. That's coming from your base image, obviously. 217 of them being high, and we could go look at them. But we're going to make some recommendations for you. If you can upgrade to Node 14, that will drop to 56 high severity. If you can go to a different image, if let's say we're not attached to
that's incredible
Stretch,
yeah,
we could go to Buster, a different distribution, and the slim version at that. Which, if you're not familiar, the slim versions are kind of they're just what's needed to run the thing, right? So Buster Slim, if you just got that base image, that would be just Buster with probably apt in it and just a few and a shell, not a lot of other things in it. Well, the Node version of that is the same kind of thing. It's Node. This is in this case Node 10 23.1 with just enough to run npm and the things you would need for Node. That drops you all the way to 55 total vulnerabilities. Now it's not zero, and you're going to need to take a look at what's left. But basically, just by simply grabbing that and editing my Docker file, I don't really need to know. I would go to my architect again and say, hey, can we use Buster Slim instead of Stretch? Can we use Node 10? He'd be like, well, we can't go to Node 14 because our app just isn't compatible with that that API. But we could go to Node 10. We're compatible with that. We need to get off 6. It's so really ridiculously old. We could do this. And so I'll update that. And I'm going to start the build. And while I'm showing you that, just like we saw in the application code, the Node.js vulnerabilities, the same kind of thing is here. It caught that there's a Docker file in here. And you get the same kind of thing. You've got your upgrade advice. and you've got the same sorted list of all of these vulnerabilities. And this is really, when I first saw Snyk, this is really of the container scanning. What really triggered me to like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Not only do I see everything that's in there, but it's sorted by what's horrible. And we got a lot of horrible because, again, this is a really old image.
Yeah.
We don't, no, I'll just say, we don't yet have the create a pull request to fix your Docker file yet. We might or might not be working on that and might or might not have that for you soon. But I'm not going to promise anything.
You might or might not have heard that here first.
But the same kind of things here. And I can look and I can say, you know what? We're not going to worry about anything today that has no known exploits. That drops 858 vulnerabilities out of my, oh my gosh, what do I do? And now I'm looking at, oh, okay, well, they've got a high severity with a mature exploit that we need to take a look at, this bin utilities. And then now I can sit there and talk to my operations and security specialists and say, is this something we can somehow mitigate? Can we get rid of this? Now, in our case, Node 6. I mean, hella old thing.
Yeah.
But same kind of sorting is there. Now, the other thing that's pretty cool is if I come in here as, let's say I'm the organizational leader, architect, whatever, on the team. Oops, sorry, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I can say, click happy is what I am. I can say, you know what, this, I wouldn't say it for this one. I'm just going to do this for an example. I can say this is mitigated through some, you know, we're not using this aspect of that, of the system. I can actually come in and say, I would like to temporarily ignore this because it is mitigated by, you know, whatever. And I'm going to ignore this for 30 days or until a fix is available. If I click that, for this project, there we go. It is now ignored. And it shows here. So whenever I pull up a scan, I can see, oh, we have ignored things. What's ignored? There it is. And I can look further into it and say, oh, Eric ignored it. That idiot. Why did he do that? And for what reason and all that kind of stuff. And I can undo it, which I will. But that's
yep. Eric, I'm sorry to interrupt. It is so the console is really cool. I did share a link on how to sign up for a free Snyk account. Is that if someone in the audience right now went and signed up, would they be able to see kind of what you're seeing here?
Yeah. So what they would see an empty organization. So I've got one project here, and to do what I'm doing for GitHub, you would basically just come over here to add project. I'm gonna click other so we see the big list. And you could add a GitHub source code repository or GitLab or all sorts of things.
Nice.
There are some that will say contact us because those are not available in the free tier. Usually the things you're going to see that on are for shops that are more on-prem that aren't going to be using cloud services as much. So most of our, Bitbucket cloud, you could use right away. But if you have Bitbucket on-prem server, there's more configuration that has to happen there because you're behind firewalls and all that kind of stuff. So, and just while I'm here, so there's source control. We have container registries you can hook up to. We have orchestrators. We have CI servers. All sorts of stuff.
IDEs, very cool. Wow.
Yeah, I'm a JetBrains IDE person, so I really enjoy the fact that all of them are in here. I will say the vuln cost, I can't wait till they port that to JetBrains. That'll be nice. It's only on Visual Studio for now, but that's okay. I can be patient.
That's very cool.
So if we jump back to my terminal, I've talked long enough. That build is done. So I could test this using the same command, just put a 2 here instead of 1. But I'm going to show you another command. So if you're a Windows or Mac user today, and you're using Docker Desktop, you know, you've got the little Docker icon up here, and you're just running this. We've actually partnered with Docker, and you don't have to install Snyk at all on your machine. If you're not interested in the open source code scanning aspect, you really just care about containers. If you have a up-to-date version of Docker Desktop, like since last fall, you can do Docker scan, image goof, this was number 2, And I believe it's Docker file on their tool. It'll tell me if I'm wrong. The file. Nope, it's. Oh, hold on. The live demo. Maybe. At one point, it was Docker file for them and file for us. They've unified it. I think it's an equal for one and not for the other. But anyway, I digress. This is the same tool. This is Snyk container scan, but baked right into Docker Desktop. So you don't have to install npm. You don't have to install our tool. You do have to, if you want to do more than just a few scans, you do have to create a free account at snyk.io. But after that, it's free. I think you get 100 scans on the free account. So that's the only requirement. And there's a command. If I hadn't done it already, it would have said you need to authorize. Once I had done like 10 scans or something, some low number like that. But other than that, it's the same tool. It's just running in a container behind the scenes. It's always up to date. It's always pulling the latest version.
Anyway, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's
I
really
didn't
nice.
realize that it was built into the Docker Desktop.
There we go. And now I only have 58 issues in my image because I updated my base. It's saying, you know what, that's the most secure version of the base image we've got. So anything else that's in here, we want to look at, right? And if I were to commit this and into GitHub, it would automatically pick that up and show me the same kind of info in my web UI. Now, there is another way to use the web UI I mentioned earlier. So what you saw me do was create a project. Like I kind of started to show you. I went into at some point prior to this. I went in, and you can see it pulled. I have it attached to my account, and I can see all of my projects, my repositories, and I could pull any one of those or all of them if I was brave. And there's another way to get scanning into the web tool. Let's say you're not using GitHub, or you're not wanting to do that kind of a configuration. Instead of doing, let me go back to our original Snyk container test. Instead of doing a container test, you could do monitor. This is also true for the code scanning. If you do Snyk monitor, and for Node.js, this is going to do it's very similar to test. It's going to take just a moment to run, but it will create a project in your Snyk account and start to monitor it for you. It's not going to see code changes because it's not hooked up to a source code repository. But the important part here is, and this is true whether you do this or you just connect it to source code, we will by default daily check again. And we don't have to go pull your code again because we have that bill of materials of what's in the Docker file. But what's secure today, if there's a vulnerability found tonight, we'll tell you about it tomorrow if it's added to our database. Which is huge, because if I'm not committing code for a week, and a vulnerability pops up, I want to know, and you'll get a nice email, and it'll say, "Hey, we ran last night, and we found this. You should probably go take care of it, or at least know about it."
And there are projects out there that they reach maturity and they aren't fast moving anymore.
Yep.
And so, like, that would be really handy to have something that can still pay attention to them. Even though there isn't something triggering a CI process.
Yep, it's useful. A lot of corporations like it when you've got you're not continuous delivery. You're like every 2 week deploy or every month deploy. Having their production images being automatically rescanned, and they can be let know even before a tool would know. Like a runtime tool might not even have it yet. Say, hey, this image that you have in your repository might have some vulnerabilities that you care about. You should take a look at it because these just popped up. And you could open a ticket right at that point. In fact, you probably saw, I go back in here.
I did see that. I think I know where you're going.
I saw it too, yeah.
So I have to upgrade to get that. That's not a free feature, but it's available. So
which was to open a ticket. Was that Jira?
Yeah.
That's Jira. I think we've got others, but that's the main one that we have.
That's very cool.
So my account, I purposely create accounts for these demos that is a free account with like maybe one change to it to get a Kubernetes monitoring thing we'll look at tomorrow. But what you're seeing here, you should have available to you if you had a free account. So, excuse me. So back to my terminal. That finished. Oh, we already looked at that. Oh, I'll get back to my script. Like I have a script. So another thing, excuse me, another thing that you saw when it scanned my GitHub repository, among other things, there's some Kubernetes YAML here. Now, I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to get too far into Kubernetes today. Come back tomorrow. Stay tuned. But I am going to show you what it pulls before I've even deployed anywhere. We have static analysis, and we'll look at the deployment YAML on Kubernetes YAML. So I don't even have, other than what I might have done on a kind cluster or something locally, or some snapshot cluster, I can already start looking at things and say, hey, you should know that you've got you're going to, if you deploy this, you're going to have a container that has no root user control. So best practice, as we all know, is we should be deploying container images that have a discrete user, so that if other things go bad, they don't necessarily have PID UID 1 or 0, sorry, on your host if something got exposed to the container through a volume or crazy like that. But not only does it alert me to that line in my code, but it also tells me, now this one's kind of simplistic, but and I can resolve this by what?
This is so good.
That and if I'm new to Kubernetes, I could easily Google that and find out, well, what is the security context running through?
I'm seeing a common theme here with your tools is not only are we going to tell you what the problem is, but we're going to tell you how to fix it and why you should fix it. Like that's so important. Look, now it's hard to know security in and out and every single nuance that comes with it. So to have a tool that gives me suggestions and explains to me the impact of not fixing something, that's really important. That's super, super awesome.
One of the ones I like to harp on, because I've been at so many customers that this bites us in the rear end.
Yes.
It's noticed that I've got no CPU limits. I put requests on there, which if you're not familiar with Kubernetes, the request is basically saying, hey, orchestrator, scheduler, when you go to figure out what node to put this pod on, this container needs this much CPU and memory to start up. That you make sure that that's available there. But that's a scheduling side. The limits actually tell the container runtime engine, really the Linux kernel, don't let this process have more than this much CPU. And you can see that I've not done that. And if I look at the impact, that they could have all the CPU on the node, basically, and starve other processes, other containers, anything else of CPU cycles because there's no limit being put on it. And I can resolve this by adding that to it. Now, what's interesting here is it's showing low. Let's say I'm the lead on this team, I'm like, that's more important to me than low. So for my organization level, even bigger than a project level, I can go into our what we call infrastructure as code. And here's our Kubernetes and Terraform settings. And I can come in, since these aren't really vulnerability things, these are more of bad practice or preferences, if you will.
It's a lot like a linter in some respect.
Yeah. I can come in and say, you know what? That's at least a medium, in my opinion. Same with the where's the memory? I thought it was right next to it. Memory. There it is. Medium. And now it saves that automatically. So if I come back and look at that same manifest and kick off a retest now, this one's a quick one because it's got everything locally. Those are all mediums now, and they will be going forward. So that's as far into Kubernetes land as I think I'm going to get today. We'll see this come back up tomorrow when we get into our runtime tools, as to how it kind of the synergy there. But just the ability to be able to know. Oh, and by the way, let me come back over here. I'm going to go into my manifest directory, and let's do Snyk IAC test. You get one of them. Oops.
By the way, I kept spelling it Snyk
I've been, like I said, I've worked here for 5-6 months now, and I continue to do it. Same info on your workstation. You don't even have to push the CI to get this. We can expose it to you right here, and it's
Which again pushes that feedback loop even further left, as far left as it can really go.
Pretty much, yeah.
And now imagine you know, in your Git workflow, you have some pre-commit hooks that maybe run these tests for you. So before your code even gets to Git, you as the developer need to fix. I rhymed with something there.
That's crazy talk. What are you talking?
Now you're getting fancy.
So I'm actually, just because I can, I'm going to add and commit this Docker file. I want to get into, we put CI/CD in the title of this talk. I should probably show some CI/CD.
That's fair.
So, but I wanted to really emphasize as shifting left as far as you can go. I'm a CI/CD nerd. I was a Jenkins ambassador for years. I've been in that open source community for years. I love CI. But if you can do something even before the CI comes into play, good God, do it. So I've just committed that up. Let's jump over and take a look at my code pipeline. And I know it didn't go that fast. Yeah, 5 hours ago. I didn't push. Helps to push. We're not magic here.
I can't tell you how many times I've done the same thing.
And then you're wondering for a good 5 minutes, why isn't it triggering?
Oh,
I know I committed.
On my Twitter feed, there was somebody the other day was posting, I've been in the industry for 20 years and I keep doing this, and I had to post, I've been doing Terraform for how many years, and realized I was pushing it to the wrong I had the wrong AWS credentials, so I was updating.
It's the little things.
It wasn't production.
The little things that break us.
That's right.
So here we are. We've got a Snyk goof pipeline that's pulled the source and is now building. And I'll show you the build spec here in a second. Well, actually, I'll show it to you right now because this is taking a while. So let's look at our build spec.
Now, is this something that a Snyk tool built? Did it reach out and build the pipeline?
No. Well, not automatic. I use Terraform to build it because that's what I do. But it's which we'll look at that in a second. Actually, the build spec. There we go. It's actually building now. So this is an example, and I wanted to use code deploy, or I'm sorry,
code build,
code pipeline,
code
build specifically, as these are tools that we don't have direct integration. We don't have plugins for these tools, right? So there are no plugins. I don't think you don't have a plugin infrastructure for these tools. So how do you use them? Well, you use them like you would think. You would just use the same way you would do it in any scripting tool. You just run it like we just showed you on the command line. And in this case, it would be better for me to have a different base image than just I'm using the Amazon Linux base image, and I'm installing Snyk on top of it. I would have a Snyk base image that already had it, and I wouldn't have to do that every run. So that's just me being lazy.
Nice job on the integrations, though, with parameter store with your tokens there. I'm liking that.
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to not do that. At first I didn't, and I was like, no, that's not clean. I need to.
They are a security company.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
This is going live to the world. So. But yeah, so you can see here that I'm authorized. So remember I mentioned that the first time you run Snyk after you install it, you're going to have to auth it. Sure enough, here's where I'm doing that. If I hadn't done that, we would see output as soon as I tried to do a monitor. It was like, I don't know who you are. I can't monitor something because you didn't tell me what account to attach it to. But we do our pre-setup. We do an npm install, and then we do a Snyk monitor, and we send it the org ID. So it's Snyk. We have your account has its ID, and then you can have multiple organizations. And we're telling it, hey, monitor this in this org. If I don't give it that, I think it'll throw it in default, whatever your home org is. And then I'm doing my Docker build, and I'm doing the same thing for container. And then finally down here, I'm pushing to ECR. So it's it's nothing that if you've used code build before, this is not crazy fancy build spec. This is the standard stuff you would do. It's very easy to understand. If you're hiring somebody to come on to your DevOps team, they're going to be able to understand this. It's not complicated. You could tell I was a manager at one time. I care about that kind of stuff. Come down here, and it looks like it finished. So if we now back over to, oops, that's not the tab I want. Those monitor commands are what push these in. So we have the npm project automatically being monitored, and this will, again, it'll get updated every time the CI pipeline runs. But if we don't have a run, it'll get rechecked again every day. And that's changeable. You can actually say don't check it every day, check it every, I don't remember what it is, but you can check it less often. You can say don't recheck it if you don't want to for some reason. And here's the same thing for the Docker or for the container scan. So that's that. We could also, just so you can see it, little tease for tomorrow. Oops. Yes, I can use web interface. Let's go over to ECR real quick. So there's my images pushed up. We've got one that went in earlier today when I was getting ready. This is now the current one. We pushed both the latest and that. Let's come over to Snyk now. And just to show you how this works, I can come into ECR, and there's my repository, and I want to have latest. I always want to see what the latest one is. We'll add that. This will take a minute. If you probably can't see through the screen share, it's got a little pulsing.
Yeah,
thing.
I see it. It's like yeah.
And that's going to basically do the same thing that you're seeing here, right? The with the monitor. It's going to go out. It's going to pull the information from the image and have a scan done of it, and then it'll refresh that scan every day, or unless somebody pushes a new version of latest out there, and it'll tag onto it.
So it would detect that latest is now a different SHA, and it would re-pull it?
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest with you. I can't remember if that's a daily check or if that's an active webhook. I'll have to look into that. I'll have that answer by tomorrow.
Okay, cool.
But there we go. So there it saw. And what's kind of cool about a container registry scan, and this is true, it's not an ECR only thing, any registry that we scan, it will not only show me that, oh, you have a Debian-based image, but it also will give you a quick Node.js scan as well. Because it saw, oh, you've got a Node.js app in there, and there's a package JSON. I might as well scan that for you. So
yeah, that's cool. That's what I was looking for earlier when I was thinking about, like basically one tool that can do both dimensions of scanning that you really care about. Yep.
And just because you asked earlier about setting what I use to set things up, it is Terraform based. We have infrastructure as code scanning for Terraform on AWS, as well as our friends over at Azure and Google. The Azure and Google are new. In fact, I just have a blog out today if you'd like to go look at information about that. But let's take a look, for instance, at what we can scan there. It's showing me that I have IAM has 5 medium level. My code build manifest has 3. Let's look at the code build one first. Luckily, they're all low level.
And is this is there CloudFormation support as well, or is it
not yet?
Terraform?
Not yet. It's all still Terraform right now.
Cool.
And again, I actually don't know if and when we're going to do any outside of Terraform, but right now that's what we have.
Cool.
Keep your eyes open though. That could change. Terraform and Kubernetes, I should say. I think we do Helm as well, but that's another discussion for another time. It's showing me, hey, by the way, you did not, for instance, set versioning on your S3 bucket. And why would I care? Well, you won't be able to revert things, and I can resolve that by simply adding that. Same idea as you're seeing in the Kubernetes scanning and in our other things. Is like, here's a potential problem. It's a low priority. Might not be a problem for you, but it's something you should look into.
So tell me this. Let's take the versioning example. There are occasions when I actually don't want to version.
Yep.
If I were to set the versioning parameter, but instead of true, I set it to false, is it still going to show as a vulnerability, or because I made that choice?
I would say yes, because it's the fact that versioning is disabled. So we know that the default is false state. I would assume that if I were to change it to false, it would still be been in that state.
I do have a feature request there. This
Awesome.
So it's funny though. I think Brett and I we think very similarly. So there are cases where, yeah, this is ephemeral in nature. Versioning doesn't matter, and frankly, I don't want to absorb the cost of versioning. So I think maybe additional data would be helpful there. But what I saw earlier, is this something I could say ignore like I did with the?
Oh, absolutely. So I could temporarily or permanently ignore it for this project. What I'm curious about, I can't remember.
See, that's a project level, and that's cool. So because in another project, it very well
would be important.
Is important, right? So that's cool.
Yeah, so I could do it organizationally too. So if we just don't do versioning here, turn it off. Or a company might have multiple organizations, so you might have one that's just for CI/CD related things, and then you could turn it off for the whole org. You wouldn't have to keep ignoring it for each project. But you could do it
on the flip side, I could say versioning is critical here, and I could set that to a high vulnerability. So
exactly, if this is, for instance, the bucket that audits for your PCI end up dumping into, damn well better have versioning on that.
Right.
So, excuse my French, I used the naughty word.
Didn't even catch it.
It's because it was
high
vulnerability.
Other thing that's kind of cool at the code level is, again, these are all being scanned statically. This is not, you're not having to go through and deploy something just to see whether something's going to work. You don't even have to run a Terraform plan on it. You just get it. This IAM one's interesting. For a couple of reasons. A, it's got crap in. This is horrible. I've got password has to change every 3 days, but it only has to be 8 characters, and I don't care about everything else, right? This is a horrible one. However, if you were to look in my code, where am I? IAC main. I am not running that. That is just sitting there so that I could have something to talk about. I did make the mistake of running that yesterday in my buddy Jay's organization and set his passwords all funky. So,
oops.
I leave that commented out. But for that reason, that gives me the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? This IAM, I don't want to delete it from the code repository because we probably should go clean it up. However, at the project level, using terminology used, this IAM main TF, deactivate that. I don't care to see it. So now if I come back, oops, I click the right one, like it never existed. However,
that's cool.
It's in the inactive list. So as a leader, if I see things inactive, I go, what are we doing? Let's just say what all, and I can see just, oh, okay. I get why that one's inactive, right?
Very cool. So I think we're probably getting towards the end of time. So I just wanted to reiterate what we did today, which is just really cool. I had to write it down because we started with our code base, right? So with Snyk, we scanned our code, our actual code, our Node.js code. We saw vulnerabilities in our code base with dependencies, and we got basically Snyk told us here's what you can fix, here's what you can't fix, and here's the ways you can fix them.
Yep.
Then we scanned our Docker images, and we scanned our Kubernetes manifests, and we scanned our Terraform infrastructure as code manifests. I can't think of another dimension that we missed there. Literally, that's everything that would be deployed out there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this tool literally touched all of those components of my environment. I hate saying this, but from soup to nuts, it seems like it really did do the job. That's really impressive.
I think this would make a security team happy. Like if there ever was such a thing, then this might actually be able to do it.
And as you're talking, you can do all the ISC from the command line as well. And one enhancement that actually just went out, just in case anyone who's used ISC before, ISC used to be a little slow because we'd actually have to take all of your templates, ship them to our servers, and then scan them over there. We didn't like doing that because we don't like to have your code on our premises. Even though this is configuration, it's still code. So it's all now done locally. It's kind of cool.
Wow.
Munge it together and then pull the database down, or the policy.
Yeah. This is amazing. And as you said, I too am a CI/CD nerd at heart, and I just see all the ways that I can integrate this from my workstation, how I can have guardrails and gates in place to ensure that we kind of are ahead of the mistake rather than getting that mistake all the way to, our production environment. So very cool. And by the way, there's a lot of talk to get Selman on the show, which is Brent's dog. So I think we need to get another camera, Brent, for Selman specifically.
Oh, yeah.
Because, the barking.
Yeah, sorry about that if you aren't following along in the chat. There's, chat, but I was muted, but I unmuted, and then he barked even more. So, he just he was waiting for me to unmute.
Exactly. But yeah, so I guess, Eric, you're going to be on tomorrow, but for today, are there any parting words, anything you want to leave us with?
No, I mean, if you're interested in playing with any of this, here's the link. I think you put it in the chat already. Just hop on that link, create a free account, and you'll have, I think, like I said, you can do like 100 container scans a month for no charge. You can do, I think, limitless application scans for that too.
Nice.
We have some quick starts that one of our partner solution architects who used to work with you guys actually at AWS wrote that if you just go to AWS Amazon.com quick start and search for Snyk, these three will come up. They might make more sense after tomorrow's talk, honestly, because they get into EKS and ECR. The Snyk security one probably is the most pertinent to what we talked about today, and it gets into the cool Lambda stuff you can do with it as well.
Awesome. There was one question, and I think we know the answer, but we're gonna put you on the spot anyway. Any ECS support coming?
Not that I've heard of, but I will take that, and might have an answer tomorrow if I can.
I think it
and
would
if not,
be.
Let's talk about how we can make it happen.
I mean, besides what we showed today, right? The scanning of the images and the all of that. That's critical to making sure the containers you're running are secure. So
yeah, I think the only thing that would have to be filled in would really be the infrastructure as code aspect of it. So because that's we're going to see the Kubernetes part tomorrow, so we'll know more.
One thing is, if you do go create an account and go into your whatever your default org you get settings, you can see what we scan for in the IAC world, both for Kubernetes and for Terraform. So if you go down to the AWS section of Terraform, scroll. You can look for, if there's something specific you're interested in, what is it for IB? What policies do we have? If there are things you think we should be scanning for that aren't, send me a tweet, send me a message, and let us know.
Awesome.
Use the support feature on the site. Let us know.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, sorry, Brent. We should be wrapping. But yeah,
all right.
Thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.